10 years ago, a swarm of alien monsters called IBA came to Earth from outer space. The monsters rampaged in the sky and on Earth, exterminating all living things. Human weapons were useless against these monsters. It seemed that humans could not escape extinction. But ironically, as it usually happens, the monsters themselves brought salvation to the people, awakening in them an incredible power that no one has ever seen, thereby fighting back so evil creatures. Look at his claws. It's the villainous saber-tooth of the X-Men. All in all, the confrontation against the Ibis began. At the moment, things were rather quiet. The students were heading to the 8 Special Purpose School, also known as the Number 8 School. This school gathers kids from the age of 15 with the most outstanding skills, all good enough for the modeling magazines. This school had the best program that would make outstanding fighters. And this very boy standing at the school's door is a student at this elite school. Wait, is this young man really a student here? Oh no, he's just a part-time janitor, and who even threw a soda bottle at him. The janitor was approached by some pointy-haired guy, pointing out that since he had no skills or rank, he should at least take out the trash. In this world, each person is assigned a different rank depending on their ability. Special soldiers have ranks from D to S rank. Civilians have ranks from F to E. This system was invented to respond more quickly and effectively to invading IBA monsters. But unfortunately, the janitor didn't awaken any abilities. He wasn't even given an F rank, and without a rank, the school wouldn't accept him. Still, the young hero is not about to give up. Picking up a can of soda, he informed that whoever littered, cleaned up, and that goes for every rank. But at the same moment, the young man received a couple of kicks to the head, which already had 2 bumps on it, and he was lying on the ground. Cactus Guy took the janitor by the hair and thought that since a rank had given the order, the janitor should obey, calling the young man a rankless trash. He used the fire skill, telling the young man that he should have learned manners and knowledge in middle school, because ability was everything. And since that clueless janitor can't remember anything, Cactus decided to burn that rule on the young man's body. But in the same second, the flame was extinguished by the cold, making a big icicle out of the fire. The janitor didn't understand why the flame had iced over. The disgruntled Cactus in turn didn't understand why or who did it either. The girl with blue hair and pink eyes had explained to the bandit that the abilities should only be used when fighting against IBA monsters, so she didn't understand what this student was doing. Besides, how dare he behave like that to a civilian? This girl's name was Orin Hyuka. She was an S-ranked awakened, also known by the nickname Ice Wall Witch, considered the most outstanding student among the first years, an elite among elites. In that case, Cactus leaving reported that he didn't do anything, and besides, the girl herself used the ability on him. Picking up the empty jar from the floor, the girl felt that the young man should not have objected to those above him in rank. After all, in an emergency, if a young man was accidentally killed by someone higher in rank, he would get away with it. The young man smiled, took the empty jar and thanked for his help. But the young man gave a thumbs up and explained with a wide smile, as he has no rank or ability. He judges people by their actions. As he left, he said that he had to do some cleaning, as his job was to keep the students of School 8, who protect our world, clean. This puzzled the girl, thinking that the guy is quite strange and very naive. But it wasn't always like this. It was 8 years ago. His mom came up to Gue and asked him why he was crying. The boy said that everyone at school thought he was talentless and laughed at him. The mother looked at her son and explained that it is not a big deal if he has no abilities. She was sure that one should judge a person not by what he has, but by what he does. Her smile lit up the boy, explaining that she wanted her son to help people to the best of his ability. The boy wondered about his mother's words, to judge not by ability, but by deeds? Yes. The boy, with a happy smile, told his mother that he would try to do it, and his mother wished him luck. But one fateful day, his mother became seriously ill. The doctor informed the boy that his mother's body was too weak for her ability. At present, no treatment had yet been devised for such a thing. As the boy stood by his mom's bedside, the 2 nurses gossiped that this boy's ability had not awakened, which the girl with black hair couldn't believe, laughing at the fact that he was as rankless as his mom. The boy didn't understand what was an ability. What is a rank? With tears in his eyes, the youngster pulled himself together and shouted that no one should dare to evaluate him and his mother in such a way. After all, a person is defined by his actions. Currently, Gue was struggling to do his job, cleaning the floor to a shine, wiping the windows, and cleaning the dirty toilets. He was very happy that he was able to finish all the work for the day in the morning. Therefore, he thought about whether he should clean up the outside as well. Going outside, the young man noticed how the students' practical classes were going on. The teacher was showing the C-grade IBA monsters, figuring that since there were C, B, and higher ranked students gathered here, they could defeat such a weak opponent in 1 minute. After releasing the monsters from the cages, the teacher ordered to begin. Cactus used the skill, Absolute Explosion, and Hyuka used the skill, Absolute Ice, thus frying and freezing the opponents. The classmates were ecstatic that these two defeated the opponents with just one strike, and it seems that for an S rank, this should be a breeze. Watching this excellent show, Gue had something on his mind. Oh yeah, he still has to throw out the trash. But at the same instant, something flew near him and flew into the city, creating a huge explosion, blowing away both the young man and all the trash he wanted to collect with the shockwave. Oops. In the city, specifically in the 48D area, an alarm began to sound as there was an attack near the 8th Special School, where Gue was currently located, still holding on to his trash. Gue throw away the trash and run like hell. At this moment, all soldiers of rank C and above were ordered to go on alert. At this moment, Gue finally woke up, seeing the enormous Yib monster in front of him. In any case, the students who thought that this monster had gotten the best of the ranking stood up for the city. They even called the dragon an idiot. Cactus was ready to kick the dragon's big butt, but Hyuka asked the boys to wait, because she didn't think they were ready for a real fight yet. But the smug idiots ran towards the monster, ordering the girl to shut up as they knew what to do, especially if they finished him off, they would rise in the rankings. Cactus created a maximum explosion balloon, and his friend created a thunder arrow. Well, there were others who created something as well. All in all, piling their abilities on top of the dragon, the students thought they had succeeded. And then there was a huge explosion, throwing Gue and the trash in his hands back to the side. The joyful students thought they were the best, expressing their belief that they shouldn't have attacked school number 8. But to their great disappointment, the dragon protected itself with its wings, which infuriated Cactus, seeing that the dragon didn't have a single scratch on it. Though if you think about it that way, they shot at it with whatever they could. At that very second, the dragon started attacking the students, and Hyuka asked everyone to hide behind her, thus creating an ice wall to protect them from the dragon's destructive beam. But still not all the students were able to reach the ice wall, so they scattered. Hyuka, holding the ice wall against the dragon beam, realized that it wouldn't last long, so she flew away as the ice wall was destroyed. Gue, on the other hand, finally showed himself at this point, and without his trash. He was watching the scene of his pseudo-comrades being attacked by a dragon and about to kill them. The young man could not understand how this huge dragon was able to defeat all of the higher-ranked ones. The students who survived saw in the dragon the same monster that destroyed Tokyo 8 years ago, because this power and size they could not confuse with anyone. It was the strongest IBA monster that was currently chasing after the disciples. And Gue just looked at all this outrage. The students tried to escape, leaving Orin Hyuku alone. She tried to stop the boys, thinking that they should fight together. Otherwise, no one would protect the civilians if they all ran away. Running away in fear, the student begged for help and the dragon decided to help him by hiding him in its mouth. Delicious! While the dragon chewed on the appetizing human, Hyuka was extremely surprised and shocked that the monster IBA had eaten a human. The dragon began to approach the girl, and afterward, a strange tongue that resembled an outgrowth of the alien, from the movie Alien, appeared from its mouth. The girl began to panic and scream, because death was close. But fortunately Gue ran to her aid, throwing his precious garbage into the dragon's face. Most likely the young man thought that the monster's mouth was a garbage can. He grabbed Hyuku on his shoulders and quickly ran away from the trash dragon, for the dragon was not happy with the fact that its mouth was a trash can. Gue stopped and decided to open a hatch in the ground, thinking that the best solution would be to hide in the sewers, since he knows all the tunnels inside and out. The dragon stopped and didn't realize where those two had disappeared to. Would he really eat those two? While in the sewers of school number 8, Gue ran with Hyuka as hard as he could. The girl didn't understand anything, so she asked why the janitor was taking such a risk for her. After all, he doesn't even have powers. Gue wished that the girl would keep quiet, because it's already hard for him, but still answered that he does what he can. He expressed that he didn't need an ability to help people. This surprised the girl, so she thanked him for saving her. And something tells me this will be the first girl in Gue's harem. Still running through the tunnels, the young man explained that there should be an entrance to the shelter at the end, but they had to hurry. Soon Gue and Hyuka made their way outside, which they were very happy about since the shelter was right in front of them. Looking at the shelter, Gue didn't understand why they were closing the doors. Carrying the injured girl, he asked to wait as they stayed outside. The man behind the door shouted that they were already out of places as it was overcrowded, since the civilians from the neighboring houses were hiding here. So the guy asked Gue and Hyuku to look for another shelter. But soon he noticed a girl who turned out to be Hyuka rank S. In that case, he ordered the others to move over because it was their duty to protect her. Gue and Hyuka were overjoyed, thinking they were saved. But suddenly, the guy from the shelter pushed Gue, saying that there was no room for him, but Hyuka could come in, This disciple couldn't afford to let trash like Gue into the shelter since he doesn't have a rank, so he asked to find another shelter. The girl was shocked. She explained that this young man had saved her, so she asked to let Gue inside. In that case, Hyoka decided to give up her seat to the young man since there wasn't enough room. She gave the order as a superior officer to let Gue inside. But suddenly there was a rumbling sound, signifying that the monster IBA was coming this way. The apprentice ordered the others to close the gate, as they had no time for chatter. Gritting his teeth, Gue pushed Hyoka inside the shelter, much to the latter's surprise. Holding back tears but raising a thumb, he reminded the girl of his words. Ranks and abilities don't matter. A man is judged by his actions. Soon, the gate closed and Gue was left alone. Well, that's how to put it. After all, behind him was a bloodthirsty dragon that looked at Gue with a particularly vicious gaze. He still couldn't forgive the incident where the young man threw trash at him. They exchanged glances, and Gue only laughed, for his opponent was the strongest IBA monster. Opponent? I'd say you've become an appetizer rather than his opponent. For 15 years, Gue has lived proudly facing problems head-on. And this time, he has to fight a monster that even the high-ranking ones couldn't defeat. After hitting its nail with a steel stick, the young man ordered the dragon to surrender, or else he would hit the second nail. Soon the young man rushed forward, bringing his steel stick above his head and shouting that he may not have the ability, but he could defeat the dragon by sheer force of will. But to everyone's dismay, the dragon thought Gue was just an appetizer. The young man felt that dying saving people was the best outcome that couldn't be thought of. At this moment, the dragon was furiously devouring Gue, who thought to himself that it was all a lie. He had indoctrinated himself all his life that a person was defined by his actions. But the truth was that Gue had always wanted an ability, and with that ability to face those who mocked him and his mom. But that's no longer possible, for Gue lies torn apart in the stomach of a monster. With tears in his eyes, all he could do was apologize to his mother, and then he died. Oh no, what is this? Is that a system window? Yes, that's it, which incidentally explained that the death condition for activating the ability was met. In that case, the black hole ability was activated, thus lifting Gue upwards, where the black hole soon appeared, signifying that the hunt had begun. At that moment, black holes began to appear on the dragon's body, making it feel very painful. The absorption level at that moment was at 20%. And then, one solid black hole appeared in the dragon's body, thus increasing the absorption level by 40%. The dragon gradually absorbed itself, and it was already 65%. And when it was 90%, only the tail and head remained of the dragon. But soon, the absorption level reached 100%, creating a blue sphere in space. And soon, the process of decomposition and rebuilding began. The sphere began to crack, and then there was an explosion. When the smoke cleared, the figure of a man emerged from the sphere. He proudly stood in a pompous pose, showing his charms to the world, and then wondered if he had absorbed the strongest? Yes, it was our boy Gue, who was naked and very hungry. The system reported that the strongest IBA had been successfully absorbed, so it offered the young man to use his unique abilities. All in all, Gue was still as hungry as ever, and so he fell to the floor after losing consciousness. And speaking of which, a black mark could be seen on his hand, as if someone should come out from there. At this moment, a kind of blue energy came out of Gue's hand, which afterward ordered Gue to retrieve his body. The young man held his head and didn't understand why a certain voice was heard in his head. But soon Gue realized that it was the voice of the strongest IB, who was still asking for his body back and also trying to eat Gue. But it was already a dream, for the young man woke up in a hospital bed. He was surprised that he was still alive, for the young man remembered very well that he had been consumed by the strongest IBA. Soon he noticed a black hole in his arm. Taking a closer look, Gue wondered, is that a black spot? No, it's just shit covered in shit. But suddenly, some kind of energy flew out from that black mark, which turned out to be a small and cute dragon that was asking for his body back. Oh my god, what kind of Pokemon is that? Gue was surprised and asked the Pokemon who he even was. IBA pouted, for he was very angry, as this insolent little man didn't recognize him. The dragonkin pointed out his majestic horns, and his sharp fangs that could bite metal in half. In that case, the dragonkin reminded Gue that he was the king of the creature they humans had nicknamed IBA. And he is the strongest. Gue couldn't believe that this small strongest monster was IBA, because he didn't look like him at all. But the dragon pointed to his horns and said that only he could have such majestic horns. Gue suggested that they were kind of similar, but the dragon thought that the young man still didn't believe him. In that case, the cute Pokemon decided to tell his true name. He explained that only a few were honored to know it. But lo and behold, for some reason, the dragon can't remember his name. At that moment, A sudden blow from the former janitor flew into the dragon. Gue began to beat the creature up, as he was so full of pathos and didn't believe he was the strongest. The dragon asked him to stop mocking him, but Gue held him in his arms and was very angry, because of this dragon so many people had died. In that case, the dragon reminded Gue that he was his enemy, and it was the young man who had eaten him. To prove his words, the dragon explained that from now on, Gue's body consisted of the remains of his body. The dragon was very angry, because he thought he had already digested the young man, but Gue had already started to eat him from the inside. Besides, he was sure that Gue was smelling his odor, and he, as a great creature, had to live in this miserable shell, calling himself a lower form of life, because he even had to speak human. The not-so-smart Gue wondered, so his body was made up of a dragon body? And the Pokemon was already getting angry, as he was getting tired of being told the same thing over and over again. Anyway, someone entered the room and so Gue ordered the dragonkin to hide. It was Orin Hyuka, who was surprised and happy that Gue Koroboshi had finally woken up. Gue recognized the girl as the one from school, and so she gave her name. In that case, the young man decided that he would call the girl Orin, and she could just call him Gue. But the girl looked at this young man and thought that he had no respect for his elders. Anyway, Hyuka said it didn't matter. She was annoyed that Gue had ignored her orders that time. Thinking back to that moment, she promised that she wouldn't let him do that again. After all, it was the duty of the senior to protect civilians. Gue explained that he wasn't going to go against her order. He did what he thought was right. Suddenly, the room got cold, and in that case, the girl used her powers to ask Gue to be honest with her. She recalled that on that day, a week ago, the strongest had disappeared from all radar and Gue had been found alive. She wondered how that had happened. Hyuka asked the young man to answer her question, as this information could help humanity. Gue was surprised that it had been a whole week already, and the dragonkin hiding behind the young man's back was asking to take away the cold. Either way, the young man was surprised that he had slept for so long. Hyuka explained that Gue was in the School 8 hospital and had been unconscious for exactly a week. She turned on the TV and showed what was going on in the world right now. The news said that the strongest IBA appeared as suddenly as he disappeared. The case is still under investigation. During the strongest's attack, communications were disrupted. All cameras and nearby equipment were destroyed. No recordings were kept. All they had was eyewitness information. Only one boy was found in the place where the strongest was supposed to be, and that was the only information available. The journalist sitting in the helicopter said that the details were still unknown, but they would continue to broadcast them. Looking at Orin, Gue asked her not to say that the boy she had found was him, but the girl confirmed that it was, so she asked her to tell what happened that day. After all, the strongest has enough power to exterminate humanity, and they must find him as soon as possible. That's why Orin came to Gue as a representative of School 8 to interrogate him. She put her hand forward and summoned ice magic, telling him not to lie to her, because otherwise she would have to use force. Gue wondered whether to tell her the truth. He explained that he didn't remember much, but that the strongest one had eaten him that day. Gue wanted to say, but the dragon had called him a cretin. He didn't understand where such honest idiots came from. Gue grabbed his head as this Pokemon was yelling like crazy, giving him a headache. Hyuka inquired if Gue was alright. The young man replied that he was fine, just a bit of a headache. The strongest began to sarcastically tell Gue to tell the girl who ate IBA's monster, and then the humans would definitely kill them on the spot. The young man thought about the dragon's words. After all, it made sense. But still, he grabbed the dragon by his soft cheeks and explained to him that if he lied, it would only make things worse. He asked Orin to listen carefully. Showing the dragon and his black mark on his arm, the young man explained that he had eaten the strongest with his ability, but the dragon screamed that he would destroy them. Watching this scene, Orin Hyuk was shocked. She thought that Gue had gone crazy because she hadn't seen anything. Gue went into a stupor and then thought about the fact that Orin couldn't see the taint or the strongest, and had she heard him? In any case, Hyuka summoned ice magic again and asked the young man to be serious. After all, as the girl said earlier, she might use force. But suddenly, something unknown flew in the sky and it was noticed by the strongest. The girl went to the bed and ordered Gue to answer, for the life of mankind was at stake and she would not let him escape. At that moment, the dragon called out to Gue, shouting that he should run away now. The young man didn't understand why there was such a rush, but the dragon couldn't explain since they didn't have time. Soon the huge monster burst into the room, smashing through the wall and windows, much to Gue and Orin's surprise. And the Pokemon screamed about how it was too late to run away. In the same second, Hyuka used the absolute ice wall skill to prevent the monster from breaking through to them. Watching that monster, Orin was surprised that another IBA had appeared. Hyuka held the ice wall as best she could and Gue wondered what this IBA was doing here. and the strongest could only yell for the kid to get the hell out of here. The strongest explained to Gue that what they call S rank is just that, nothing, and this IBA came after his scent. Gue didn't understand what odor were we talking about. In that case, the strongest explained that he had defeated most of the local IBA on his home planet, and this purple IBA had probably smelled that the dragonkin was weak at the moment, so he had come to take revenge. In other words, the strongest explained to Gue that this IBA had come to eat him. Gue was surprised because the strongest was to blame, and he was the one who should suffer. The purple one was trying to destroy the wall with his huge claws, pressing down on the dome furiously and forcefully. The girl was confident that the ice wall could withstand the attacks of even an S-class ibis. Therefore, she asked not to worry, but at the same moment, the purple one broke through the defense, and so Gue pushed Orin away, telling her to run away since that monster IBA had come for him. The girl didn't understand what that sicko was talking about. In any case, using her magic, she felt that it was not for him to give her orders. After all, she's Orin Hyuk, S rank. It's her duty to protect the civilians. Orin recreated 1,000 deadly icicles and launched them at the purple monster, causing it to scream in pain. Orin was elated that she was able to hit such a monster, thinking that no IBA would be a problem for her. But this purple IBA that looked like a walrus and a chicken didn't seem to feel anything at all. He was only approaching them with the pathetic gait of a JoJo. With dazed eyes, Orin couldn't believe that her icicles were gone, and she thought that the monster had melted them with his body heat. Soon the monster began to accumulate its energy, creating an energy ball near its body. The girl at the same time tried to touch Gue so that he could hide behind her. In that case, the strongest one called out to the young man, saying that this purple one was distracted, so as long as this flying chicken was focused on the girl, they could safely escape. But Gue at this moment started ramming the monster with his body to stop accumulating the killing sphere. This really pissed off the strongest, as he didn't understand what this little guy was doing. Orin thought the same thing, for at the moment, she was thinking that Gue didn't have any abilities, so he wouldn't be able to do anything, so she ordered him to run away. But Gue smiled and clarified that he was doing what he could. In any case, the target of this monster was a young man, so he assumed that he was the one to fight this chicken. The monster was very angry, such cocky behavior, and Gue was glad that now this IBA was looking at him. But as you know, Gue didn't know what to do next. But soon he noticed a hole in the wall and also a tree, so he ran that way, because the tree could be used to climb down and get this monster away from people. The strongest didn't like this idea because Gue's body was his body, and if this IBA got to him, he would just eat him. In any case, Gue knew this without the little brat's prompting, and felt that he had to do it at any cost. When Gue pushed off the floor, it immediately broke, and the young man at that moment flew very high, to Gue's own surprise, because he didn't understand how such a thing was possible. Seeing the city from a bird's eye view, Gue felt like he was flying like a bird. He liked this amazing feeling very much, but he didn't understand how he could get down now. When Gue started to fall to the ground, the strongest ordered him to be quiet and to calm down and concentrate on his feet. Before the young man hit the ground, he concentrated energy in his feet, which cushioned his landing, leaving a large hole in the ground. Upon landing, Gue opened his eyes and couldn't believe he wasn't sick. He didn't understand how this was possible. After all, he had fallen from the 5th floor and hadn't crashed. In that case, the disgruntled but lovable strongman asked for thanks, because it was thanks to him, which surprised Gue a little. At that moment, the flying chicken jumped down too, and since it had caught up with them, Gue felt it was necessary to get it out of here as soon as possible. Gue and strongman started running away from the monster, and the strongest decided to make a deal with the young man. He offered to swap bodies with him, and if Gue agreed, he would defeat the chicken. But if the young man refuses, then all the people in the city will die. After all, for this IBA monster, it's a simple matter. The strongest asked Gue what he would choose: let the people die, or give him his body. With a horrible and very sly look, the strongest asked him to choose sooner. This puzzled the young man, and he asked what did he mean by switching bodies. The strongest explained that he would take Gue's body under his control, and since it consisted of his remnants, he was sure that he could control it. The dragon reminded the young man of how he had landed on the ground successfully, all because Gue had used his power. And without that power, the young man would have been smeared on the ground like a cow patty long ago. Running away and dodging the purple dragon's bites, the dragon ordered Gue to think faster or else they would die. At this moment, Gue wondered if he should give his body to the strongest, but remembering the moments when he devoured him and also destroyed his students, Gue immediately refused. The young man thought that if he gave up his body, this little fluffball would definitely arrange something here. After all, He still hadn't forgotten what that horned man had done to school number 8 and the students. Gue was dodging the monster's attacks. He would be hit by it a little more. Lying on the ground and looking at the monster, the young man realized that this chicken would not let go so easily. And the strongest explained that all this is because this monster knows that this is the body of the strongest. This IBA monster wants to burn Gue's body to a crisp. As Gue was running away, however, he heard a woman's voice. It was a girl in a wheelchair who most likely didn't have time to evacuate. In that case, the monster immediately switched to this girl, which was bad news for Gue. The young man tried to divert the chicken's attention away from himself so that the girl could escape. But Strongest asked Gue not to show off, but rather give up the young man's body. Gue thought that his body was indeed composed of the flesh of the strongest. In that case, the young man decided to try something. He decided to hit the monster with all his might, and when he struck his crushing blow, everyone was stunned as it didn't even scratch him, much to Gue's bewilderment. In that case, the strongest began to arise what he had already said about the young man not being able to use the power unless he borrowed it. When the purple IBA was accumulating energy at his mouth, the strongest one repeated his offer to Gue once again, to swap bodies with him. After all, this way he would be able to finish off this chicken. He asked to think fast, or else this hospital would be left untouched. Gue pulled the strongest one towards him and flattened him with his hands, saying about the dragon talking too much. In any case, it was the dragon's fault that this chicken showed up here. Gue declared that it wasn't the strongest who would use his body, but Gue would use his strength. As the deadly beam flew towards them, the dragon screamed that he was about to die. In that case, Gue explained that this was all he could do right now, but if the strongest would lend him the power, they would both survive. Clutching the dragon's head, Gue explained that strongest IBA is a threat to all of humanity. If he took him with him, they would only thank him, wouldn't they? The dragon reckoned that the goon would kill him, in which case he had no choice, so he ordered Gue to give him his right hand. This time he would let him use his power, but asked him not to expect much. When the strongest one was in Gue's body, he felt the power spilling all over his body. He was sure that now he would succeed. As he was about to strike, Gue knew that he had to get rid of this monster and not hurt the people in the hospital. At this moment, the system reported that the power release of the captured strongest had begun. Gue put his hand up, from where blue energy came out, which countered the flying monster's attack. But as it turned out, Gue's strength was not enough, as the violet energy suppressed the young man's strength. Gue realized that he couldn't handle it, so he wondered if this monster wanted them to be devoured. But the dragon ordered the young man to shut up and underestimate its power. Gathering all the energy together, the blue energy traveled through the chicken's energy and then tore the walrus head into huge pieces. Oh my god, it looks so beautiful and epic. The artists who worked on this piece, you did a great job, and this girl loved this fight scene too. Soon, the monster without its head finally dropped dead, and Gue was very happy that they were able to finish off this huge beast in one blow. In that case, he praised the dragon for being so strong, admitting that he was wrong. But suddenly his eyes began to close, and Gue himself fell to the ground unconscious. Seeing the young man lying on the ground, Orin immediately ran towards him. She was shocked to see that there was also IBA's corpse on the ground, wondering how this was possible. She couldn't believe that Gue Kuroboshi had done it. After all, this boy doesn't have any ability, or is this guy hiding something? Soon, Gue Kuroboshi was in some obscure place sitting at a table. Opening his eyes, the young man smelled some delicious odor. Then the man pouring tea offered Gue Kuroboshi to drink it since he was awake. After offering the tea to the young man, Gue asked who the man was, or rather, where were they? The man apologized for not explaining anything. He told the young man that he was unconscious in critical condition after defeating an alien creature that had attacked the hospital he had protected. The man said that the place was the training ground of school number 8. The place could also be used as a shelter for important people during an IBA attack. He has humanity's highest defense power and can withstand attacks from both inside and outside. The man soon introduced himself as Ryujin Nishiki, and he is an S-rank hunter. In addition, he was the commander of the 8th Special Squad and the principal of school number 8. The strongest seemed horrified by the name, but Gue was shocked that he had met the Ryujin Nishiki he had heard about. The young man knew that this man had defeated the strongest IBA 8 years ago when he attacked Tokyo. And now Ryujin Nishiki is the strongest hunter in the country. Ryujin asked to stop praising him, as it also applied to Gue himself, who until recently worked as a janitor at the school. While the two were chatting, the strongest couldn't utter a word as the bad guy came out, so he suggested Gue to hide for a while as now he didn't have a single chance of winning. In any case, Gue did not understand why on earth were they in the underground training ground. But then, Gue met Orin Hyuk, and with joy on his face, he was glad she was alright and Orin was of the same opinion. But there was another girl sitting at that table, so Gue wondered who she was. The girl said that she was the one that Seal had attacked, and then introduced herself as Senri Unagi and she was rank A, and thanked the young man for saving her. The boy said it was a disaster, even though he was in the hospital. And then he noticed that the girl was wearing the uniform of school number 8. In that case, he wondered who all these people were. After all, apart from him, everyone here is highly ranked. Anyway, the man offered to cut to the chase as he explained the whole situation and then told the boys that they were free to have tea and sweets. Gue thought the cookie was very cute, though not to his face, but Ryujin asked him to feel free to help himself, and then offered to cut to the chase. The man told Gue from the doorstep that he had eaten the strongest of the IB, and suggested that the young man could use a star element of even greater magnitude. Gue didn't understand how they knew. The man said that Oren Hyuka didn't say anything, but they were watching him. At that moment, the young man tensed up a lot, and Ryujin Nishiki explained that the star element is a mysterious substance brought by IBA from outer space. The source of IBA's energy is the source of human abilities. Though he realized that it was impossible to see it with the human eye, and even a high-end machine would hardly feel it. This energy cannot be measured by human devices. But looking at Senri Unagi, the man explained that her abilities are special. She could see stellar elements and even analyze them. Therefore, Ryujin asked the girl to watch over the young man because she was the only one who could do so. In that case, Gue assumed that it was no accident that he had helped Senri in the hospital, and so he asked Ryujin Nishiki if he was trying to test him. Taking a sip of delicious tea, the man said that the strongest kind of IBA appeared in Tokyo 8 years ago. It was the strongest IBA that did its best to destroy everything. Ryujin recognized that this IBA is a threat to them and is comparable to a nuclear warhead, and the recently appeared IBA is definitely the strongest of them all. And at this moment, it's too dangerous for them. With those words, he put his blade to Gue's head, expressing his belief that they should eliminate the danger if there was any hint of it. The man explained that it was his responsibility as an S-rank player, considered the strongest in the country. This was a surprise to the young man, as he didn't even realize how Ryujin had appeared behind him, as he had just been sitting in his seat. Ryujin explained that it was the new training model that failed to protect the students who had a future because the strongest species demanded it in his absence, and he hated that image. He expressed his confidence that he would destroy the strongest species with his own hands. It was bad because just a little bit more and Gue would lose his head. But at that moment, Oren Hyuk asked the director to stop. She asked what if there was a new species that was as strong as the strongest IBA, with a strength equivalent to a nuclear warhead. Besides, there was a possibility that there might not be only one such IBA, but there might be 2 or 4 of them. Oren felt that Gue should be their friend to harness the power of the strongest IB, for he could be the hope of mankind. Gue didn't expect this from Oren, and at this moment, the man put his blade away in its scabbard, as the girl's words have valid arguments. But still he didn't know, was the strongest IBA the best countermeasure against other strong species? After all, it is unrealistic for a 15-year-old boy to operate a nuclear switch, and so he must find out. In that case, he turned to Senri Unagi to watch over Gue Kuroboshi, and the girl with a wry smile agreed to do so. She rode up on her 2-wheeled Mustang and apologized for taking his hand, which had a hole in it. The young man was puzzled, because he didn't understand what the girl was doing. Taking a closer look, Unagi explained that she had found the strongman in his tiny form, about to put on his tail in fear. She wondered if he was different from the other day, since the star element quality was now 0, but she still thought he was very cute. Strongest sitting in Gue's hand, he didn't understand what kind of girl this was, because he didn't feel very good right now. Senri Unagi didn't know how it happened, but either way they wouldn't know anything if they didn't observe it properly, and so she reached for her patch to remove it. Removing the patch, her right eye was distinguishable from the other, as it looked like it had some sort of webbed mesh in it. Oh, is this a reference to Spider-Man, When Are You Coming Home 5? Oh, I'm looking forward to the new installment of The Good Spider-Man, aren't you? Anyway, with a glance at Gue Kuroboshi, the girl explained that people were the universe, and she wondered what kind of universe could be seen inside the young man. After activating the astronomical observation skill, Unagi fell into Gue's time. She couldn't believe that there could be something like this inside this young man. The black space represented the inside of Gue, and the twinkling stars were the stellar elements inside the body. The girl remembered what Gue had said about him having no abilities, but he had star elements, though differently less than the others. The girl soon noticed that the stars were moving into the dark abyss, and so she thought that the strongest within Gue was sucking them in. She didn't realize what Gue's powers were, for there was a black hole below, which began to suck the girl in along with all the stars. Well, rightly so, nothing to be inside people without their permission. Unagi tried to escape, but she failed, and so the vortex pulled her into the dark space. Opening her eyes in horror, for it was the gravity of a black hole, and no creature would survive if caught. This kind of ability is beyond human ability, but the girl decided that by all means, she would find out Gue's true identity. As she dived deeper and deeper, Unagi saw a black circle, which she assumed was the strongest IBA. Suddenly, the strongest one woke up and roared at Unagi, then rushed towards her, opened its mouth and tried to eat her, but at that moment, Unagi canceled the astronomical observation skill. Waking up in the real world, the girl was horrified, thinking she was already in the stomach, but then realized she was still alive. Oren ran up to Senri and wondered if she was alright, as the girl had been screaming the whole time. Gue didn't understand anything at this point. He wondered if it was over. The man decided to offer Senri some tea to calm down, but Oren asked the headmaster for a glass of water. Greedily gulping down the water as if for the last time, the girl still couldn't say a word. Then the principal decided to ask herself, what was the result of the observation? Looking at Gue, Unagi said that the boy had the black hole ability. She saw a black hole when she was inside Gue. Unagi was sure that Gue also inhaled his star element, and remembered that he was called a star elemental. In that case, the girl explained that it was because of this ability that he had eaten the strongest IBA, so she thought that the young man's testimony was true. The girl said that when she was sucked into the black hole, she saw that the strongest dragon, IBA, was imprisoned there. Putting a cup of tea on the table, Ryujin Nishiki asked what was the strongest IBA. The girl informed the principal in fear that this dragon attacked her and tried to devour her. After saying that, the principal put his blade to the young man's neck again in the same second. Oh my god, this old man was at it again. In any case, Oren Hyuka didn't understand what the headmaster was doing. The man explained that what Senri Unagi saw was an expression of Gue Koroboshi's ability and condition, and if the strongest IBA inside the young man launched an attack, there was a possibility that he would break his ability, appear and attack humanity. Therefore, holding the blade at Gue's head, the headmaster felt that he needed to deal with the young man before this incident. At that moment, strongest IBA couldn't help himself and explained that this man was motivating him to borrow Gue's strength and defeat him. It was then that Unagi revealed what strongest had just said. She explained to the principal that strongest could lend his power to the young man and kill them all, which immediately shocked strongest, as he didn't expect the girl to be able to hear him. The girl also explained that this little strong man was not their enemy. She believed that the strongest inside Gue's body was what they called soul. However, when Gue took the strongest IBA, his soul and body were separated, and the body was placed in a black hole. She believed that by letting his soul out, it became powerless and sealed. But the man objected that even if the strongest IB could be sealed, the danger would be greater if the soul was tempted to use force. In that case, Ryujin Nishiki looked at the man with a fierce gaze and considered that there should be no nuclear warheads seducing their owners in their world. And when the man wanted to strike Gue with his blade, the young man took hold of the blade with his bare hands and assured him that since he had always been without abilities, he knew exactly what he should do and he would not be tempted by a kid like the strongest. But Ryujin snatched the blade out of the young man's hands and shouted that it would not guarantee anything, so he struck the young man with his blade, inflicting a serious wound on Gue. At this moment, the strongest became furious as his body was seriously wounded, so a terrifyingly strong energy began to flow out of Gue's body. Senri Unagi considered the strongest in Gue's body made him stronger than any S-ranked player, and therefore considered it to be the end. In that case, the man felt that if Gue Kuroboshi was recognized as the strongest, then he should be eliminated immediately. The girls noticed that the strongest man's power had increased rapidly, and if this continued, the strongest man in Gue's body would be released. But the man objected to the girls, saying that this would not happen, because he would cut him out before it happened. So he jumped up and struck Gue with his blade, creating a shockwave that shattered and shook everything around him. Unagi was shocked at what she saw, as the director strengthened his sword to attack with the star elements. Soon the man froze in place, and when the smoke cleared, Gue released all of his energy, showing Ryujin his power. The man was extremely surprised because this was the first time he had seen so many star elements, and furthermore, he who did not possess the ability to see star elements was able to see them. In that case, while Gue had not completely surpassed the man in every way, he decided to attack the young man once more with a few slashing blows. But it was all in vain as the energy enveloped the young man, thus protecting him, which was a bit disappointing for the man. But Oren Hyuk was surprised, because despite the director's repeated attacks, Gue's body remained unharmed, so she felt that she should support the director. But suddenly, she remembered Gue, remembered how he sacrificed himself to save her. Soon, the strongest man finally appeared from the young man's hand. He was mocking Ryujin Nishiki, thinking that there had been a mistake, as he didn't look like the strongest man in the country at all. The man smiled and said it was okay, then jumped back. Soon he raised his sword above his head, saying that he would do his best, and then he summoned yellow-colored energy from his sword, creating a powerful tornado, which amused Strongest as their battle was getting interesting. Senri Unagi noticed that the headmaster's sword had gathered all the stars in this space, so she thought it was dangerous. The energy of Ryujin Nishiki's sword and the energy coming from Gue's body. These two tornadoes were about to come together in a fierce battle. But at this moment, Orin was shouting for Gue to wake up, because the Strongest couldn't take control of his body. But the young man heard nothing, and so he emitted a dragon's mouth from his hand and then his whole body into Rogan, who said that he wanted to play for fun. The headmaster attacked back, and their energies collided with each other to form a terrible energy. So terrible that Orin came to create a wall of ice to protect himself and Unagi. But then, the man's blade simply broke against the dragon's head, which left Ryujin shocked to see the terrifying dragon in front of him, emitting a damn frighteningly strong aura that screamed for food. Soon the dragon told the tea guy that he was having fun, and so he opened his jaws to devour Ryujin Nishiki. The girls couldn't believe that their principal had been eaten by a monster, but when the smoke cleared, the man himself was surprised to see that he was still alive, and then he saw Strongest's head smashed into the ceiling, which he couldn't see at the moment because it was very dark. As it turned out, the reason why the dragon hit the ceiling was Gue. The headmaster stared at the young man and asked who he was, Gue Kuroboshi or the Strongest IBA. At that moment, the young man smiled and then proudly declared that he had already said that the Strongest IBA would not be able to fool him, and therefore declared that he was Gue Kuroboshi, explaining that it took him some time to regain his body since that old man knocked him out and he was unable to control his body. Soon Gue pulled the Strongest to him, and he yelled for all he was worth, as he didn't want to go back into those sweaty hands of the young man again. Gue squeezed the Pokemon as he was very angry, for the Strongest had attacked someone again. The young man threatened the Strongest. Did he really want to be eaten? And then he looked at that lump of white trouble with such a horrible look that I'm going to dream about it. And it's 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm sitting here writing the script for this video. Overall, Strongest was also scared of Gue's eyes because they looked so empty, as if they were about to devour him. Strongest immediately experienced that feeling when the young man started to devour him. In that case, the Pokemon understood and decided to go back into his hand, but asked him not to do anything like that again. Looking at the strongest one trying to fit into the young man's hand, Gue remembered that he was told that he had the black hole ability, but he didn't know how to use it at all. Still, he was very happy that the strongest had returned on his own. Senri Unagi looked at the young man and didn't understand how Gue came to exist outside of the S-star rank. At the same moment, the headmaster looked at the young man with a smile on his face and then laughed, for this was amazing. The man was surprised that Gue released the strongest yib but didn't harm anyone, and then sealed the strongest yib back into his body. In that case, the principal said that Gue Koroboshi had passed the test, so with the principal's authority, he approved his transfer to the special squad at school number 8. But Gue didn't know what the old man was talking about. In that case, Ryujin explained that it was a test. He realized that if there was a chance that the strongest IBA would attack them in the future, he wanted them, humans, to have the same strength as the strongest IBA, but felt that this power should be under their control, and so he decided to test the young man to see if he could control the strongest dragon of IBA. The young man didn't understand anything. After all, first he was tested in the case with Senri, and then there was the test with the T-guy, and now some special transfer to school number 8. He was incompetent in an elite school where only the highest-ranked students were allowed in, and so he didn't understand if he really wanted to be accepted into this school. In that case, he asked if the young man was dissatisfied. At that moment, the young man put his fist forward and said no. After all, he is doing what he can, so he will study humanities in school number 8 and fight for everyone. And if someone does not have the skills, then let them do some cleaning, for example, and he will support those who fight. But once they have the strength, then do everything possible. In that case, the man understood the words and bowed his head and said it was a good idea. But anyway, he welcomed Gue to his school. Soon the headmaster asked the young man to show him his scars, as he wanted to use his power to heal the young man, and also apologized to Gue for cutting him so suddenly. Looking at the scar left on the young man's body, the man assumed that Gue was no longer in need of treatment, believing that this body was made from the parts of the strongest, and therefore thought again that this young man was still a danger. In any case, the principal called Orin Hyuku and told her that from this day onwards, Gue Kuroboshi would be in the same class as her, and by putting her in charge of the young man, he also asked her to take care of various things. In that case, the girl understood her task and said that she would do her best. But that's not all. The man also said that Senri was changing classes, asking her to join the same class as Gue and Orin, to eventually keep an eye on the young man. And this order the girl was very happy about. After all, watching the strongest little lump of happiness, it's one pleasure. But this news did not make the strongest happy, as he understood perfectly well that now he would become an object of surveillance around the clock. Well, you shouldn't have attacked the world. Now be afraid of any glance from this girl. The principal looked at Gue and Senri and thought that it would be interesting next, and Orin agreed. In that case, the tea guy took out some tea and offered Orin to drink together, but the girl refused, and so he apologized to her because he needed a dose of tea. "You bloody tea maniac." Anyway, as the principal held a cup of hot tea in his hands, he asked Orin for a favor. He said that if the strongest IBA got out of control with Orin's abilities, she could eliminate Gue Kuroboshi. This of course stunned the girl, as the headmaster was up to his old tricks again. The man explained that he could have done it himself, but since he was often absent due to the elimination of an IBA of rank S or higher, he thought Orin could handle it. At that moment, the girl remembered how the strongest had easily destroyed her ice wall. In that case, Ryujin Nishiki reminded her of her ability, Ice Star. He asked her to use this ability before the strongest IBA was released. The man thought it should be done before, but what would be the result? The girl began to doubt the director's words, but the man said that they had no right to make a mistake. After all, they only have 10 S-ranked people in their country who can protect this country. Looking at Gue, the girl immediately remembered the moment when he was carrying her when they were running away from the strongest IBA. But pulling herself together, the girl said that when the strongest IBA Gue Kuroboshi was out of control, she would personally destroy him before he could harm anyone. After all, it's her responsibility as an S-ranked player. Plus, it's her way of honoring Gue Kuroboshi as the man who saved her life. In that case, the man smiled as he was satisfied with the answer. And then he called out to the young man and used his skill, releasing a white flame from his hand. He asked Gue if he could feel anything, but the young man answered in the negative. Anyway, the principal told the boys that he would give them an assignment before Gue went to school number 8, so he asked them to tell the young man about Hashimoto. The man informed them that this was an important mission with the survival of humanity at stake, so he asked them to accomplish it at all costs. After a while, the young man was clutching hard with the joy that filled his pants. After all, at this moment, he had come to the training ground, the place Orin had indicated. But taking a closer look, the young man saw a sign that indicated that it was a hot spring. The hot spring was Murahati. Oh well, why can't any manga do without hot springs? Is a manga without that no manga, or the same sea without a trip to the sea? They can't either. Oh well, anyway, Gue was standing at the hot springs and where he was greeted by a girl who was happy that the young man had finally arrived, but also apologized to him for keeping him waiting. Gue looked up and saw the girls, Orin and Senri, greeting him at the training base 8 of the Murahati Special Corps. Gue looked at the girls and wondered if they had finished bathing. Yes, and what the hell kind of special training? Orin explained that bathing in hot springs was also one of the training sessions, so she asked the young man not to talk as if he didn't know about it. But the young man still didn't understand why Orin's skin was so shiny and so soft to the touch. He looked at Senri and didn't see her turbocharged wheelchair with a spoiler behind it, so he asked if it was normal for a girl to stand on her feet like that. The girl explained with a smile on her face that the headmaster's powers had healed her legs, and since it was only a broken bone, it healed quickly with the help of their headmaster's powers. Squeezing the strongest in his arms, who was not happy about it, Gue was shocked at such abilities, and therefore decided that he should rather get used to such a thing. Suddenly, Unagi ran up to Gue, but not to hug or kiss him, but to finally see the strongest. She really wanted to study this cute Pokemon. With loving eyes, she looked at the strongest, but it only scared him, so the Dragonkin decided to get away from this crazy girl as soon as possible. But Senri was unstoppable. She clarified that she would not stop, and this time she would use the hole. Leave that poor boy's hole alone, you crazy woman. Anyway, taking Gue's hands, she licked her fingers with a loving look. But the young man didn't understand what Senri Unagi was going to do. Taking Gue's hand and her wet fingers, she thrust them into the young man's hole, making her feel really good as she went inside. Oh my god, if you close your eyes, you can think the wrong thing at all. So let's all close our eyes. In any case, Gue at this point began to feel very embarrassed, but pretended to be very ticklish. The girl continued to play with Gue's black hole, and even offered to go inside, but the boy was against it, and said that people's bodies were not toys. At the same moment, Orin Hyuk also wanted to stick her fingers into Gue's hole as her heart couldn't take it anymore. But Gue was screaming about them misusing people's bodies. When Senri's fingers were in the black hole, they began to be bitten by the strongest himself, for he was against these girls doing all sorts of nasty things to his house, calling them inferior beings. But this only amused the girl, and she felt that her hypothesis was now largely correct. She asked the young man if he felt anything when she stuck her fingers inside the hole, but Gue answered in the negative, but it still just tickled him. In that case, Senri stated that she was sorry, because if Gue remained in the same state as he was now, he would never be able to use his abilities. This puzzled the young man like hell, for he didn't understand how it was that he wouldn't be able to use his abilities for the rest of his life. What did this even mean? For Gue, this news was very bad. But the strongest smiled, thinking that this was a very good thing. Overall, the girl said that when she inserted her fingers into the hole on her hand, she emitted star elements. However, since Gue didn't feel anything, it was bad. At least that's what the headmaster told her. Gue then inquired what was a star element, and how was it different from abilities. Orphan Hyuka explained that star elementals were the energy used to use abilities. You could say that it was fuel. Stellar elements are cosmic substances brought with the coming of the IBA monsters to Earth, and now they have spread throughout the world and are everywhere. These elements are also present in abundance in the bodies of living beings. Soon the girl demonstrated the flow of energy going through her body, explaining that they take the star elements into their bodies through breathing and eating, and the energy is constantly emitting small amounts of star elements from all over their bodies. But the problem is that Gue can't sense it, Senri said. She also added that the young man can't use his abilities because he can't recognize star elements, which are fuel. At this moment, the strongest smirked and looked at Gue, who didn't understand why he couldn't recognize the star elements, and it seems like he was in a predicament right now. But since Orphan and Senri would give him some special training, the young man thought he would be just fine, which of course pleasantly surprised the girls, seeing how Gue wouldn't give up. Once there, Senri decided it was time for them to start their training. But Gue didn't realize, was this really the source? In that case, Orphan was first, and then Senri handed her a ladle of hot water. Covering the ladle with her hands on both sides, Orphan Hyuk began to emit an unusually strong energy that emanated from her at the same second. Soon it was the turn of the young man, who didn't understand what it was. Orphan explained that they had placed a large amount of star element in the hot spring, and therefore expressed that if Gue drank it, he would be able to sense the star element. In that case, holding out a ladle of hot water, Senri asked to enjoy the rich hot spring stars from Senri Yanagi and Orphan Hyuki, but the latter started to get embarrassed because her friend uses foul language, and so she asked to stop talking like that. Anyway, Senri explained that the hot springs here were originally full of star elements, but they added even more star elements to this water so that Gue could feel it more easily. In that case, the young man assumed that if he could sense the star element in something like this, it was already an easy victory, and so he thanked Orphan and Senri. But something tells me there's something wrong here, judging by the faces of these two girls. In any case, Gue dared to drink this water, but then immediately threw away the ladle of water, and then took a grip on his throat, which felt like it was burning inside. At that time, the girl also told the young man with a caustic smile that she forgot to tell him that the dark star element is poisonous to some people, and therefore one should be careful. At this moment, Gue's insides were burning, and he didn't understand why he was being punished like this. In that case, Senri explained that since Gue was transferring to school number 8 tomorrow, she couldn't say that it would be easy for him there. Therefore, if a student of school number 8 is practicing at the hot spring, it means that he is very strong. Therefore, the goal is to increase the capacity through dense star elements. At the same moment, the young man wiped the remnants of water from his face and thought about whether this was a sudden attack, but taking control of himself, or rather his stomach, the young man felt that he should clean it up with a smile on his face. After all, he was going to enter school number 8 and help everyone. The girls began to encourage the young man, telling him that he would succeed. Gue was in a lot of pain at this time, but soon a powerful energy began to emanate from his body, which the young man noticed and was very surprised. He felt the strength of every blood vessel in his body and assumed that this was the star element. Kuroboshi suddenly noticed a glowing aura around him and wondered if it was the star essence. The women around him smiled, pleased that he had been able to unlock this energy. However, Kuroboshi felt a strange shift in the atmosphere. His attention was drawn upward, and he was surprised to realize that the entire environment was filled with star essence. He could feel it radiating not only from the hot water, but also from the trees surrounding them. The one-eyed woman, noticing his surprise, explained that nature itself is rich in star essence, particularly in this area. She revealed that this place serves as a special training ground for the Star School, where students come to harness and refine their abilities. Kuroboshi was about to ask more, but suddenly he noticed that the star essence he had felt so clearly just moments ago had disappeared. Confused, he looked at the one-eyed woman and asked what had happened. With a serious expression, the one-eyed woman explained that she had used her ability to peer inside Kuroboshi and discovered something alarming. All the star essence he had been absorbing was being sucked into a black hole within him. In other words, Kuroboshi had been unconsciously absorbing the star essence, but instead of retaining it, the black hole was consuming it all. Kuroboshi was stunned by this revelation. He couldn't help but wonder if this meant he wouldn't be able to use his powers at all. His concern was palpable, and the woman confirmed his fear. The star essence wouldn't stay inside his body, rendering him unable to properly harness its power. However, before Kuroboshi could sink too deeply into despair, the woman offered a glimmer of hope. She said she had an idea. The younger girl, who had been quietly listening, chimed in with excitement, suggesting that they should enter the hot spring. Since the water was filled with concentrated star essence, perhaps the interaction between the essence-rich environment and Koroboshi's unusual condition might lead to some kind of change. The woman acknowledged the idea with eagerness, clearly believing it to be an excellent plan. Her urgency to get into the hot spring reflected her belief that it was a crucial step. However, before proceeding, Koroboshi raised concerns about his training. She understood the importance of his question and mentally noted that his current training required focus on managing the star essence within his body. Overextending himself would only hinder his progress. The primary goal for now was for him to learn to retain the star essence, so taking on more than necessary would be counterproductive. Though feeling somewhat frustrated, Koroboshi decided to follow along. As he joined them in the hot spring, he couldn't shake his curiosity. He wondered what the women were really planning, and if there was more to the process than simply being in the water. The small creature accompanying Koroboshi eagerly drank from the pipe, clearly fascinated by the star essence in the water. It continued to gulp down the water with great enthusiasm, savoring every drop. Noticing Koroboshi watching, the creature couldn't resist a jab and mockingly remarked how tough life must be for those without talents. This comment hit a nerve. Enraged by the creature's taunt, Koroboshi lashed out, landing a swift punch on its head. He sternly told the creature not to bother him when he was trying to be serious, even though he was seething with anger at how the small creature taunted him. Deep inside, he begrudgingly acknowledged its truth. The creature's words stung, but they mirrored the harsh reality that he was reluctant to face. There, kneeling by the water, he scooped up a handful, watching as tiny motes of star essence danced and flickered within the liquid. Despite this overwhelming sense of frustration and failure, he refused to be defeated. The disappointment gnawed at him, but his resolve remained unbroken. There was a burning determination within him, a fire that would not be extinguished by mere setbacks. No matter how elusive the star essence seemed, no matter how far the goal appeared, he would not give up. He was committed to pushing himself beyond his limits, to doing whatever it took to achieve his desire. Even if the path was long and fraught with difficulty, he was ready to face it head-on, certain that there was a way, somehow, to master the star essence that now mocked him with its inaccessibility. Meanwhile, in another part of the complex, the women's bath was alive with conversation. Amid their chatter, the topic of Koroboshi came up, and a few of them speculated about his situation. One woman remarked that, even though Koroboshi could sense the star essence, something many could not, it wouldn't matter much at the star school if he couldn't actually use it. Survival at the academy required not just awareness but mastery, and as it stood, Koroboshi was far from achieving that. Another woman nodded in agreement, adding that when it came to star essence, everything hinged on personal perception and internal clarity. No one could truly guide Koroboshi through the challenges he faced. It was something he would have to overcome on his own, through his own understanding and effort. The woman agreed, saying that everyone has their own unique traits, so the way they use their powers is different, to which even if she teaches him her own techniques, it won't be the same for him. So, they decide that they should trust and wait for him, believing that he will figure something out. Koroboshi feels frustrated seeing that by drinking the water, he was not able to store the essence as well. He had even started to feel lightheaded as he is not good with hot bath in the first place, but then he noticed something feels off as he wondered if the star essence he had earlier had gone. Then, he discovered that his hand is absorbing the star essence to which a vortex is starting to form. He wondered what kind of ability is this as he does not have such ability. At that moment, a pop-up system notification appeared stating that he had accumulated more star essence than required for the strongest seal. He was shocked looking back at the glowing text, wondering if it was the same thing that appeared during the trigger, to which the system then showed him a question asking if he would like to enter the super awakening zone, which he agreed to. Looking forward to what will happen. An intense shockwave then occurred in the bath, to which the two women were shocked, wondering what caused the impact. Then they saw a bright light shooting up. Seeing the light, they immediately rushed out of the bath as they realized that the light was coming from the men's bath, calling out to Koroboshi, who apologized for scaring them. He explained that he was just soaking in the bath, and then a window popped up to which he was able to use his ability, looking excited as he laughed. The women could not but wonder what had just happened. The next day, Koroboshi emerged from his room, feeling a surge of excitement as he donned a crisp, neatly pressed uniform of Star School. His anticipation had been building for days, and now the moment had finally arrived. With a pleased look on his face, he mentally noted how long he had been looking forward to this. The morning sun cast a soft glow over the campus as students hurried about, a sense of energy and promise filling the air. Koroboshi took a deep breath, feeling a blend of nerves and eagerness, knowing that this would be the start of something new. As he stepped out of his residence and made his way through the streets, he soon crossed paths with Orphan and Senri, both of whom were also dressed in their school uniforms. The two girls were chatting casually, but their faces lit up upon spotting Koroboshi. Orphan, always quick with a smile, greeted him warmly, her eyes scanning his uniform. "It really suits you, Kuroboshi," she said, her voice laced with approval. She then began to reminisce about their previous encounter at the hot springs, a moment that seemed almost surreal to her. Senri, ever the one to add a playful jab, joined in, teasing Kuroboshi about how unexpected that meeting had been. "Who would have thought we'd all run into each other like that?" she remarked, a sly grin on her face. Kuroboshi, now feeling the familiar flush of embarrassment, shifted uncomfortably under their teasing. He recalled the encounter vividly, a mixture of surprise and awkwardness, with the steamy atmosphere of the hot springs only adding to the confusion. He tried to laugh it off, but the memory clung to him, making his face heat up slightly. Orin and Senri, noticing his reaction, exchanged amused glances, clearly enjoying their playful teasing. However, their conversation soon shifted, and they looked around curiously. "Where's that little creature of yours?" Orin asked, noting the absence of Kuroboshi's ever-present companion, the small creature that had been a constant presence at his side. Just as they were about to continue their walk, a familiar chuckling sound echoed from behind them. The small creature revealed itself, emerging from behind Kuroboshi with a mischievous twinkle in its eyes. Meanwhile, Orin approached Kuroboshi with a curious expression and inquired if he had managed to gain control over his light manipulation abilities. Without hesitation, Kuroboshi extended his hands, and a beam of radiant light shot upward into the sky. The brilliance of the beam was so intense that it even caused a small creature nearby to be lifted off the ground, prompting the creature to start panicking and frantically exclaim that it felt as though it was being hit. As the two walked towards the school, Orin commented on the mysterious nature of Kuroboshi's ability. This remark triggered a memory for Kuroboshi, who recalled the notification window that had appeared earlier. The window had indicated an excess of star essence, leading him to wonder if his difficulty in controlling the light was due to a lack of sufficient essence to properly release his powers. Orin then offered a potential explanation. She suggested that Kuroboshi might have absorbed star essence from the surrounding area, which could explain why the essence was depleted even in places like the women's bathhouse. This depletion had apparently hindered Orin's ability to practice gathering star essence, as the usual sources were no longer available. Kuroboshi quickly apologized for any inconvenience caused, his tone earnest. Orin, caught off guard by his abruptness, felt her cheeks flush slightly. She assured him that she was only half serious in her earlier remarks, though there was an undercurrent of seriousness in her words. Kuroboshi, taken aback, couldn't resist a comment about how she actually had a knack for joking, even while questioning him. Orin, momentarily flustered, decided to shift the conversation. She emphasized that Kuroboshi's ability to sense star essence and utilize his powers, even if still limited, marked significant progress. She declared that this advancement was a major step forward and encouraged everyone to focus on strengthening their abilities, particularly in Shia. Kuroboshi was silent for a moment, contemplating her words. Suddenly, he performed a sharp bow, surprising Orin with his unexpected gesture. He explained that he wanted to express his gratitude properly for their help during his training. Orin smiled at Kuroboshi's gesture and remarked approvingly that it was a great mindset to have. She added that he was quickly starting to resemble a true Star School student, recognizing his dedication and growth. As Kuroboshi prepared to leave, he mentioned he had somewhere important to stop by. Orin, noticing the time, called out to him, warning that he would be late if he didn't hurry. Kuroboshi, already on the move, responded over his shoulder that he would make it in time, his voice filled with determination. Watching him rush off, Orin felt a twinge of doubt about her earlier assessment of Kuroboshi's progress, wondering if she had been too quick to judge. At that moment, Senri, who had been observing the exchange, commented with a knowing smile, "That's so like Kuroboshi." Kuroboshi made his way to the hospital and entered the quiet room where his mother was receiving treatment. She lay asleep, unaware of his presence. Kuroboshi approached her bedside, his expression softening as he began to speak. He quietly apologized for not visiting her the previous week, explaining that it had been a particularly rough time for him. As he spoke, he carefully revealed his Star School uniform, a proud smile spreading across his face. He shared the news that he had been accepted into Star School and had begun to make progress with his abilities. His excitement was palpable as he mentioned that he would be using his powers to help everyone, including her, in the future. With a gentle promise to return soon, Kuroboshi bid his mother farewell. Meanwhile, the small creature that Kuroboshi had inadvertently lifted earlier felt an unsettling sense that something was amiss. It wondered if it was merely its imagination but chose to dismiss the feeling, deciding it wasn't worth worrying about. Kuroboshi, now acutely aware of the time and the possibility of being late, quickened his pace. As he hurried along, he accidentally bumped into someone. He immediately apologized, but as he looked up, he saw that the student had a bandage wrapped around part of his face. The student's eyes narrowed as he sneered, calling Kuraboshi an ability-less one. Kuraboshi was taken aback by the insult, and as he processed the situation, he recalled a recent incident involving a fire. Realization dawned on him. The bandaged student was Hiwashi. Kuraboshi, feeling a mix of concern and confusion, asked Hiwashi how he was doing. The question only seemed to inflame Hiwashi's anger further. With a snarl, Hiwashi grabbed Kuraboshi by the collar, his rage evident. Hiwashi glared at Kuraboshi, his voice dripping with disdain as he declared that Kuraboshi should not make a fool of him. He insisted that he was not so low as to seek praise from someone like Kuraboshi. His anger was palpable as he tightened his grip on Kuraboshi's collar, his irritation evident. Despite the situation, Kuraboshi remained remarkably calm. He ignored the taunting comments of the small creature nearby, focusing instead on addressing Hiwashi. With measured composure, Kuraboshi offered a sincere apology, stating that if he had inadvertently hurt Hiwashi's feelings, he was truly sorry. He reassured Hiwashi that he had no intention of making fun of him. Kuraboshi expressed his gratitude for Hiwashi's efforts, acknowledging that Hiwashi had fought valiantly for everyone's sake and that his actions were appreciated. Hiwashi's grip on Kuraboshi's collar began to loosen as he processed Kuraboshi's words. The acknowledgement of his sacrifice and the recognition of his role in the recent events caused him to reflect. He remembered how everyone had agreed that it was due to his efforts that they had not been defeated. Hiwashi, his anger simmering but still present, clenched his fist tightly without responding to Kuraboshi's apology. Undeterred, Kuraboshi extended his hand in a gesture of friendship. He spoke earnestly, saying that he had become someone the school could depend on and that he would be happy if they could fight together as comrades. However, Hiwashi rejected Kuraboshi's gesture with a harsh swipe, slapping his hand away. His expression was one of fierce determination as he declared that he could never be friends with someone he considered a weakling. With that, he activated his explosive fire ability, flames crackling around him as he voiced his frustration. He accused everyone of looking down on him and vowed to burn away Kuraboshi's perceived arrogance. Kuraboshi, maintaining a resolute and determined expression, did not respond to Hiwashi's outburst. A crowd of students had gathered, their cheers and excited chatter filling the air as they watched the unfolding conflict between the first-year students, Kuraboshi and Hiwashi. The spectacle of their fight had drawn a considerable audience, all eager to witness the drama between the two new recruits. Oren pushed her way through the throng, trying to get closer to the action while calling out that she was from the student council. Her concern for Kuraboshi grew as the situation escalated. A massive explosion shook the area, sending flames and debris into the air. Oren's heart raced with worry for Kuraboshi, particularly since this was his first day and he was already embroiled in such dangerous trouble. She considered intervening but was halted by Senri, who advised her to hold back for a moment. She noted that the situation looked interesting and suggested they should observe a little longer. Oren, still anxious, pointed out that Hiwashi was an A-rank student with real combat experience. The flames engulfing Hiwashi as he launched his attack only heightened her concern for Kuraboshi's safety. Senri, unmoved by Oren's worries, continued to watch the fight with interest. She reassured Oren that this was an opportunity for Kuraboshi to prove himself worthy of attending Star School. After being attacked with the flames, he began to keep his distance away from Hiwashi, who kept on taunting that he was running away. He then unleashed another attack which hit Kuraboshi, who screamed out in pain, but he began thinking quickly, wondering what he should do, otherwise he would be done for. At the time, the creature seemed to be cheering for his companion's opponent. He quickly analyzes that since the hot springs, the jet hasn't reacted at all. He couldn't help but cry out in desperation if there's anything he can do. At that moment, he noticed something manifesting in his hands, to which he had a look of realization. Hiwashi kept taunting him, saying that he is moving a lot for an ability, less nobody, to which he then unleashed a massive attack, Mega Flare, wanting Kuraboshi to burn into ashes. Kuraboshi was shocked by the magnitude of this attack that he immediately dodged while looking back. The creature also yelled at him, telling him to use his black hole to absorb the flames. He immediately followed the instructions. Meanwhile, the creature could not help but be nervous as it watched the attack close in. Kuraboshi is using his black hole to absorb the flame with a strained expression, to which an explosion occurred again. He yelled in pain as he was hit by the attack that even Senri and Orn were worried as they called out to him. The crowd kept on cheering, motivating Kuraboshi to show some guts. Meanwhile, he was sitting looking frustrated as he wondered why the black hole did not absorb the flames, since they are made of star essence. While he was still thinking about this, Hiwashi is already summoning more flames, to which the creature then told Kuraboshi that Hiwashi seems to be generating flames by using star essence as fuel, which was the reason why the flames aren't exactly star essence. Hiwashi then walked towards Koroboshi with more flames in his hand as he claimed that there is nothing he can do if he does not have an ability he can use. The creature then decided to lend him some power, telling him to think of its power as part of his own ability, as it was displeased with Hiwashi that it told Koroboshi that they are going to burn him to ashes together. Hiwashi then got to him, to which he claimed that he is going to burn him directly so he won't have to run around anymore. However, Koroboshi became annoyed, to which he faced the attack holding the flames in his hand, saying that the end of a fight is always decided by willpower. He was determined that he wouldn't lose, to which he continued grappling with the flame attack. After a while, he was able to overpower the attack that Hiwashi quickly dodged and stepped back, surprised that the flames disappeared as he looked at his hands. At that moment, the window popped up at Koroboshi stating that he had acquired the element of resolution and that he can use Jet once. He was surprised by its appearance. Meanwhile, he recalled that when he used Jet at the hot springs, if firepower was too strong to use on a person. Hiwashi suddenly realized that something is wrong with him as he grabbed his chest, realizing that his star essence inside him is decreasing. He immediately attacked Koroboshi, asking what he did to his body, who retaliated by summoning a black hole in his hand, and then countered Hiwashi with an attack. Hiwashi struggled to withstand the energy, and then punched through, only to realize that the energy attack continues to escalate, and turned into an intense energy surge that sent Hiwashi blasting into the air, and then fell onto the ground looking exhausted, to which both Senri and Orin were excited and relieved that he won the duel. Meanwhile, other students were shocked by how an A-rank student like Hiwashi was defeated, as they looked at Koroboshi wondering who he is, since they do not know that he is just a new transfer student. Koroboshi looks confused as he didn't command the jet, but it appeared on its own. He could not help but wonder what kind of ability he has. The school bell was ringing at that moment, and Koroboshi eventually arrived at class 1 year 1, where he was being introduced as a transfer student by the teacher, who asked him to introduce himself. Meanwhile, the teacher could not see the small, peculiar creature that had been following Koroboshi, as it was only visible to him. Senri and Orin were present in the class as well, and other students recognized Koroboshi as the one who had defeated Hiwashi earlier that day. As he stood there, still panting from his earlier exertions, he introduced himself to the class and also apologized for being late. The teacher then took the opportunity to explain that Koroboshi had been required to run 100 laps around the field as punishment for the morning's private duel, which had caused his tardiness. He also used this incident as a cautionary tale, warning the other students to maintain good manners if they did not want to end up facing similar consequences. Senri then remarked that she was not surprised by the situation, as such occurrences were to be expected from Koroboshi, while Orin expressed her disbelief, struggling to comprehend how such a thing could happen in the first place. They talked about how he had beaten up an A-rank Hiwashi and then had to run 100 laps around the field as though it was some sort of punishment game. Koroboshi then revealed that he had been summoned to the principal's office and received a thorough scolding. Orin, incredulous, declared that if that was all the punishment he had faced, he had gotten off easily. It was unheard of for a new transfer student to start a private duel on their first day, and she activated her powers, glaring at him with a menacing intensity. She threatened that she would be monitoring him closely and that if he attempted anything like that again, she would crush him personally. Koroboshi, feeling the weight of her threat, nervously apologized. Meanwhile, Senri leaned closer to his desk, her curiosity piqued by Koroboshi's earlier display. She observed that he possessed two notable abilities. The first was the ability to absorb star essence directly from anything he touched with his hand, known as Black Hole. The second ability, known as Jet, allowed Koroboshi to release the star essence he had stored. Samri then remarked on how she had researched the concept, noting that real black holes absorb surrounding matter and then eject it. She explained that Kuroboshi's ability was based on a similar principle, which made his powers quite fascinating. Kuroboshi, however, expressed his concern that his abilities activated unpredictably and that he couldn't control them as he wished. At that moment, a male student entered the classroom and approached Kuroboshi. He asked if Koroboshi was the one who had been cleaning the old school building, to which Koroboshi confirmed. The student was visibly impressed, commenting on how thoroughly Koroboshi had cleaned the place, noting that it was spotless. Koroboshi, grateful for the recognition, thanked him for noticing his efforts. The male student, who had been meticulously wiping his hands with a clean cloth, extended his hand toward Koroboshi with a warm and hopeful smile. "Hi, I'm Ibuka Kani, a B rank," he said, his tone friendly and eager as he hoped to make a positive impression and establish a good rapport. Koroboshi, his expression open and welcoming, grinned broadly and shook Ibuka's hand firmly, in a casual yet sincere manner. He introduced himself in return, emphasizing that, to him, ranks were not a significant concern. Ibuka's eyes widened slightly at Koroboshi's nonchalant attitude towards ranks. He had always prided himself on his B-rank status, believing it to be a mark of considerable skill and talent. Kuroboshi's disregard for such distinctions made Ibuka ponder if there was something more to this new student than mere rank could convey. He was intrigued and somewhat taken aback, wondering if Kuroboshi's indifference signaled that he was recognized or valued for something beyond the conventional metrics of ability. Just as Ibuka was processing this, a sudden, jarring presence loomed over him. Hiwashi, who had been observing the interaction with a disapproving glare, seized Ibuka by the top of his head from behind. With an air of condescension, Hiwashi sneered and barked, "Wipe off that ridiculous grin. You're just trash." His tone was laced with disdain, making it clear that he held Ibuka in low regard and was intent on crushing any semblance of pride or joy he might have. Ibuka was terrified on seeing him. Meanwhile, Hiwashi mocked them all together, saying that they are playing buddies with a low rank and someone outside the ranking as well. However, Senri, who was observing from the distance, then asked him when he thought he could bloom in the school since he had been defeated by Kuroboshi. A green energy attack suddenly hit Hiwashi, to which he got sent flying away and into the wall as well. So Kuroboshi was surprised. The attacker turned out to be a green-haired student who was smiling to himself, saying that Hiwashi had lost from the very beginning to an unranked guy, while he had claimed that it's lame to be stuck with low-ranked people. He then walked towards Hiwashi, saying he had sinned by hiding as a first year during the strongest species attack, and also lost to the duel in the morning, so he would have his rank revoked as punishment, to which he grabbed his collar. Hiwashi could only grumble in question, asking why a second-year S-ranker is in their class, who then introduces himself, Ida-rasen. He then kicked Hiwashi in the chest, saying he is here for him, claiming that the first years are trash. Ida then complained about how the principal had asked him to babysit the first years, to which he then continued that all other S-ranks besides Yenabe are off doing image training, and thanks to Hayashi's involvement, the whole class gets wiped, and even the ones who survived are all weaklings, remarking that humanity has no future. Kuroboshi and others were all silent as they watched Ida, who then claimed that they're going to have a selection test starting right away and that all the first years are participating. Kuroboshi and others were shocked by this news, to which he continued saying that each of them must take down 5 A ranks or higher thorns. He then added with an evil smile, saying that if anyone fails, then their ranks will be revoked and expelled. Other students were shocked and worried, since almost all of them are B ranks, so they wonder how they're going to hunt down 5 A-ranked beasts just like that. However, Ida replied bluntly that he is not concerned by that, to which he points at Kuroboshi, saying that the principal had recommended him, but he personally have not acknowledged him. He then continues by asking that Kuroboshi is the mysterious boy from the location where the strongest species disappeared, and that he is way too suspicious. Kuroboshi only had a shocked expression on his face at that moment. Under the bright midday sun, a group of students was running in formation down the main streets. Kuroboshi, clearly tired, struggled to keep up. His breathing was heavy and labored after hours of running since morning. His legs felt like they were made of lead, each step a challenge. Senri, running beside him, seemed much more energetic. She encouraged everyone to keep going, her cheerful attitude standing in contrast to Kuroboshi's visible exhaustion. They had been running for 3 hours and the destination, an event venue announced by the school, was still not in sight. The streets around them were unusually quiet and empty. This part of the city, normally busy and lively, seemed almost deserted. Oren then told him that the area they are in presently is already outside the defense perimeter, to which he is amazed. As the invasion progressed, humanity was forced to retreat from almost all areas except the major metropolitan zones. Survival now depends on the safe zones that surround these major cities. The Ivor's control extends over land, sea, and sky, making international travel nearly impossible. The interference from the Ivors affects communications between the stars, isolating each city from the rest of the world. During a conversation, Kuroboshi mentioned that he had only heard stories about humanity awakening special abilities and fighting back against the Ivors. Semri responded by saying that such stories are mostly propaganda. In reality, only B rank or higher rankers are aware of the true situation. At the time, Ida yelled at the first-year students, telling them to run faster and not drag their feet. He said he could see the selection venue and warned them that if they didn't want to be expelled, they should sprint as if their lives depended on it. The students heard his instructions and tried to run faster. Meanwhile, Kuroboshi remembered what Ida had said earlier in the classroom, that he didn't recognize Kuroboshi yet and found him suspicious. Although nothing had happened since then, Kuroboshi worried that if they discovered the strongest Eva, he might be in danger. He then noticed that Senri and Oren were already ahead of him, which made him push himself to run faster to catch up. After a while, they finally reached the exam site. As Kuroboshi looked around, he saw that the area looked just like a forest, filled with tall trees and dense bushes. He was tired from all the running and thought to himself that they should at least be given a little time to rest and catch their breath. Just then, Oren praised him for managing to keep up with them. She mentioned that she and Senri trained every day, so it was impressive that he could stay on pace. Hearing her words, Kuraboshi smiled proudly and replied that while he might not have special powers, he's also been training his stamina regularly, so he wouldn't fall behind. Ida called out to everyone, asking them to gather around because he was about to explain the details of the selection test. Even though none of the students actually moved closer, he went ahead and explained anyway. He told them that the instructions were simple. They had to hunt at least 5 A-rank Evis from the mountain. He mentioned that the mountain was full of A-rank Evis, so they shouldn't think about returning until they had hunted the required number. Then he warned them that if they failed, they would lose their rank and be expelled from the academy. Hearing this, some of the students were shocked and whispered among themselves, saying it was impossible for them to achieve such a task. One of the students spoke up and told Ida that their squad was only made up of B-rank members, making it extremely difficult for them to go up against A-rank Evis. They were clearly worried about the challenge ahead, as it seemed like an overwhelming task. However, without hesitation, Ida used his energy to snatch the student's rank card, which was marked as B rank, and then broke it right in front of everyone. He coldly told the student that he was out of the competition for being pathetic. Kuraboshi was shocked, unable to grasp how or when Ida had taken the cards so swiftly. It happened so fast that no one even saw Ida move. Ida, now standing confidently before the stunned students, asked them if they really thought that lower-ranked Evis would conveniently appear on the battlefield just to match their own ranks. He reminded them that the real world didn't work that way. Ida added that they should have learned this from the last strongest Eva that appeared. His point was clear. In real battles, enemies won't adjust to make things easier for them, and they had to be prepared to face challenges beyond their current abilities. The creature watching from the shadows could sense that Ida understood just how terrifying the Evis truly were. His cold words had sparked something in the students, and they became irritated, but also more determined. Each one of them wanted to prove themselves worthy of becoming elites. Fueled by this new drive, the students rushed off into the forest, eager to begin hunting the A-rank Evis and meet the tough conditions of the test. Kuraboshi quickly followed them, not wanting to be left behind. He knew that if he hesitated, he might lose his chance to succeed. However, Senri and Orin remained where they were, watching the others race into the trees. They exchanged glances, silently wondering how many of the students would actually be able to meet the challenge and survive the harsh conditions ahead. Orin began explaining the situation, comparing a B-rank soldier to a single Eva from the strongest class. She said that this type of Eva had firepower equivalent to a tank, making it a terrifying opponent. Senri gave a small smile, but her worry was clear. She wondered aloud if anyone would even make it back alive from the hunt. Orin, however, sounded more optimistic. She reassured Senri that she would support everyone to ensure that no one died, determined to help the others survive the deadly challenge. Just as they were about to enter the forest, Ida stopped them. He informed Senri and Orin that they wouldn't be joining the others in the regular exam. Instead, they were going to take a special exam with him. This news caught them both by surprise. They hadn't expected to be singled out like this. The confidence they had earlier started to waver as thoughts of uncertainty crept in. They began to question whether they could survive the special exam, knowing that if Ida was involved, it could be even more dangerous than what the others were facing in the forest. Kuraboshi is seen wandering through the dense forest, having already entered it. As he moved forward, doubt clouded his mind. He wondered how he would be able to take down 5 A-rank Evis, a task that seemed nearly impossible for him. Meanwhile, his companion was buzzing with excitement, eager for the hunt. Kuraboshi glanced at it, puzzled by its enthusiasm, while he was filled with uncertainty. His thoughts drifted back to an earlier encounter at the school, where he had met with the principal. The principal had not been pleased, remarking that Kuraboshi had already been causing him headaches from the very first day he transferred to the school. The principal made it clear that there were some things that couldn't simply be handled with punishment. He gave Kuraboshi a serious warning. He must keep the matter of the strongest Eva a secret. The principal explained that if any other S-ranker, apart from him and Hyuga, discovered the truth, Kuraboshi would become a target for elimination. Kuraboshi, feeling a mix of frustration and determination, shouted at the creature beside him, declaring that he didn't need its help and would handle everything with his own power. The creature, unfazed, simply smirked and replied that if Kuraboshi ever found himself in trouble, all he needed to do was say the word, as it would always be there to support him. Just as Kuraboshi was about to respond, a sudden scream pierced through the forest, followed by a loud rumbling sound. He froze for a moment, wondering what had just happened. His heart raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. In another part of the forest, a student was sitting on the ground, stunned and unable to move, staring in horror at a massive monster towering over them. Without hesitation, Kuraboshi rushed toward the source of the noise. When he arrived, his eyes widened in shock as he recognized the creature. It was an EVA far larger than he had imagined. He stood frozen for a second, taking in its enormous size and power, and immediately questioned if this was one of the A-rank EVAs they were supposed to hunt. The sheer presence of the beast made him realize just how dangerous this task truly was. The EVA boar let out a thunderous roar, causing the ground to shake with its powerful presence. Koroboshi stared in shock as he took in the beast's massive size, realizing it was over 3 meters tall. He wondered if this really was an A-rank EVA, given its intimidating stature. Without warning, the EVA boar charged forward with the intent of attacking the male student who was frozen in fear. Koroboshi recognized the student as Kane, who looked helpless against the approaching threat. Seeing the imminent danger, Koroboshi dashed toward Kane, determined to save him. However, a sudden realization hit him. He was currently out of star essence and couldn't use his jet ability to reach Kane quickly. Despite his urgency, he knew he had to find another way to intervene, or the situation could end badly. In a desperate move, Koroboshi decided to use his black hole ability to deal with the EVA boar. He focused on absorbing the star essence from the beast to gain some much-needed energy. With a swift motion, he slapped his hand onto the EVA boar's massive body, managing to absorb a portion of its star essence. However, the EVA boar retaliated fiercely. It swung its powerful limbs, sending Koroboshi crashing into a nearby tree with a violent impact. The force of the blow caused him to spurt out blood and writhe in pain. Kane, who had been watching in shock, saw Koroboshi's desperate struggle. A wave of guilt washed over him as he realized that Koroboshi's actions were driven by his need to save him. He couldn't shake the feeling that it was his fault that Koroboshi was now in such a dangerous situation. As Koroboshi lay on the ground, wincing in agony, he wondered if he had suffered any broken bones from the brutal strike. The pain was intense, and he thought about how easily he could have died from such a powerful attack. As Koroboshi struggled to regain his footing, the creature reappeared, its tone mocking and condescending. It taunted him, saying that he shouldn't be unable to handle such a weak attack from the EVA boar. The creature seemed to relish the chance to see Koroboshi fail, hoping he would eventually beg for its power. Despite the creature's taunts, Koroboshi remained resolute. He refused to ask for help, determined to handle the situation on his own. With a fierce look of determination, he sent the creature back into the black hole in his palm, declaring that he would take down the boar himself and prove his strength. Before disappearing, the creature issued a final, ominous warning. It told Koroboshi that if he lost consciousness, it would have free rein to do as it pleased with his body. Determined to make a move, Koroboshi charged at the evader, but a nagging doubt lingered in his mind. He had no real plan for defeating such a powerful foe. He decided to do the best he could with what he had. With a shout, he unleashed an attack he called Star Essence Jetstream, sending a powerful jet of light toward the evader. Earlier, he had absorbed a bit of the evader's star essence when he touched it, but he was unsure if he would be able to use it effectively. To his relief, the attack managed to fire off, and for a moment he felt a flicker of hope. However, his brief moment of happiness was quickly overshadowed by disappointment. The light beam attack did not seem to have any effect on the massive evader. Koroboshi realized that he had used up the last of his star essence, and with it, his ability to continue fighting effectively was now severely compromised. As the EVA boar charged toward Koroboshi, a wave of anxiety washed over him. Just as it seemed like he was about to be overwhelmed, something unexpected happened. Bubbles began to appear around the evader. The creature looked confused and halted its charge. Some of the bubbles popped, causing explosions on its face that inflicted pain and irritation. The sudden distraction made the evader furious. It turned its rage toward Koroboshi and charged again. But this time, Koroboshi used the opportunity to dodge the attack. The EVA boar ended up smashing its head into a nearby tree, giving Koroboshi a chance to escape. Koroboshi and Kane quickly took advantage of the situation and fled from the EVA boar. Kane, who had been watching in fear, was visibly relieved that Koroboshi managed to get away safely. The thought of Koroboshi dying because of him had been weighing heavily on him, and he was grateful for Kuroboshi's survival. Koroboshi, still catching his breath, expressed his gratitude to Kane for his help. Kane, moved by Kuroboshi's thanks, became emotional, his relief and guilt mixing together. As they escaped, Koroboshi couldn't help but reflect on the danger of the evader. Given its size and the amount of star essence it possessed, it was clear that it was indeed an A-rank EVA. As they continued to run through the forest, Koroboshi turned to Kane and asked about his ability. Kane explained that his power allowed him to produce soap bubbles. However, these bubbles were primarily used for trapping rather than dealing direct damage, making them less effective in combat situations. Because of the ambush they had faced, Kane hadn't been able to use his ability effectively, which left him feeling frustrated and inadequate. While they were running, Koroboshi noticed a soap bubble stuck on his shoulder. He struggled to remove it, finding it surprisingly persistent. The bubble wouldn't pop no matter how hard he tried, leading him to wonder if it was stuck because it had been absorbed too deeply into his clothing. The ordeal made Kuroboshi reflect on his own abilities and limitations. He realized that he was struggling against the Eva boar and didn't have the necessary skills or talent for fighting Evis effectively. This realization was a hard lesson, highlighting the gap between his current abilities and the demands of the test. Meanwhile, Kane, visibly shaken by the events, had come to a decision. After the frightening encounter and the difficulty of the test, he resolved to forfeit the exam. Kuroboshi was thinking the other way round, that Kane's ability is amazing, and that there is a possibility they can beat an Eva, to which Kane was surprised and asked if he had even listened to him at all. Kaine and Kuroboshi were seen panting heavily after managing to escape the evaber. The danger they had faced was intense, and they had come very close to dying. Kuroboshi, still catching his breath, turned to Kaine and asked if he was serious about quitting Star School. Kaine, looking defeated, confirmed that he felt he lacked the talent needed, and was indeed planning to quit. He explained that his ability to create soap bubbles with adhesive properties was useful for trapping, but had no offensive power. Kuroboshi tried to reassure Kane by reminding him that being accepted into Star School was a significant achievement and meant he had potential. He noted that people like Hyuga and Kagomori, who had high offensive power, were highly valued in the school, but that didn't diminish the worth of those with other abilities. Determined not to give up, Kuroboshi insisted to Kane that he could definitely use his ability to defeat an EVA. Despite Kuroboshi's encouragement, Kane remained skeptical. He told Kuroboshi to stop trying to convince him, explaining that he had worked hard, but it still didn't seem to be enough. Kane also noted that Kuroboshi's own ability hadn't worked as expected, so he couldn't understand why Kuroboshi was still so cheerful. Kuroboshi acknowledged Kane's frustration and admitted that Kane was right. His own ability hadn't been effective either. He then shared a quote he often heard from his sister. "A person's worth is not determined by what they have, it's decided by what they do." This was a principle that had guided him through tough times. Kuroboshi then proposed that they should work together to take down Eva. He had a plan in mind and believed that by combining their efforts, they could succeed. Kuroboshi hid behind a tree, carefully observing the Eva boar from earlier. He noticed that all the soap bubbles that had been stuck on the evaber had vanished over time, which didn't surprise him. He had expected this. Determined to draw the evaber's attention away from Connie and set up an opportunity for their plan, Kuroboshi picked up a pebble and tossed it at the evaber. The pebble hit its target, catching the evaber's attention. Kuroboshi then began taunting the creature, declaring that the prey it had failed to finish off earlier was now back. Enraged by the taunts, the Eva boar let out a furious roar and charged at Kuroboshi. Kuroboshi ran with all his might, but he quickly realized that the Eva boar was surprisingly fast. As he sprinted through the forest, he recalled his earlier conversation with Connie. Connie had expressed his reluctance to cooperate, feeling that he would only be a burden. Despite Kanie's decision, Kuroboshi had assured him that it was fine and that he would handle things on his own. The Eva boar eventually closed in on Kuroboshi, charging with its sharp horns. Kuroboshi was struck by the attack and knocked to the ground, but he quickly recovered and continued running, determined to push through the pain. He thought to himself that he just needed to keep pushing a little more. As Kuroboshi ran, he noticed a flurry of soap bubbles suddenly appearing around the Eva boar. The bubbles caused the EVA boar to slow down and look confused, which was exactly what Kuroboshi had hoped for. He gave Kane a thumbs up, signaling that the plan was working. The bubbles were successfully slowing down the EVA board, giving them a crucial advantage. Meanwhile, Kane was struggling to keep up with Kuroboshi's pace, but continued to do what he could. Despite his feelings of inadequacy, he kept sending out bubbles, determined to contribute and hang in there a little longer. Seeing that Kaine's soap bubbles had successfully slowed down the evaber, Kuroboshi knew it was time to act. He spotted a handkerchief tied to a branch of a tree. This was the marker for their plan. Kuroboshi seized his chance. With a burst of energy, he made a high leap just as the evaber realized it had been trapped. The creature fell into a deep pitfall that Kaine's adhesive bubbles had created. The pitfall was cleverly designed to trap the evaber's legs, rendering it immobile despite its strength. As the evaber struggled futilely within the pit, Kuroboshi landed on its head with precision. The pitfall, combined with Kane's adhesive bubbles, effectively neutralized the boar's mobility. No matter how powerful the evaber was, it was now stuck and unable to move, giving Kuroboshi the opportunity he needed to take control of the situation. With the evaber trapped and immobilized in the pitfall, Kuroboshi seized the opportunity. He placed his hand on the evaber, using his black hole ability to absorb the star essence from the creature. As he did this, a notification window appeared, informing him that the star essence had been successfully charged and that he could use his jet ability once. Without hesitation, Kuroboshi confirmed that he wanted to use it. The energy surged through him and he prepared his attack. He unleashed the Star Essence jet stream, sending a powerful light beam directly at the trapped Evaber. Part 2 is just around the corner, but you need to get 1,000 likes and also write a secret word in the comments. Alien, don't forget to put a like and subscribe to the channel. See you later and bye-bye.